This is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back. This spotlight on disaster preparedness for your business is brought to you by the law offices of Young Wooldridge. And joining me now is Tessa Lovro, the Disaster Program Manager of the American Red Cross Central Valley region, to talk about disaster preparedness. Good morning, Tessa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. First of all, I was doing some research over the weekend about disaster preparedness and why it was important for your business to be prepared. And I saw a statistic that was rather startling, and it said that 15 to 40% of businesses fail following a natural or a man-made disaster. Why is that?
Well, obviously, they haven't prepared for that disaster.
Right.
And it's usually something simple where we think about what would really impact our business and then minimizing that loss.
Okay.
So it can be solved quite easily.
Okay. And preparing for a disaster, you don't necessarily have to have one in mind, but, preparing your own internal systems to weather, whether it's a storm or a flood or an earthquake.
Emergencies happen every day. So what if the power goes out? What if your phone systems fail? What if there's an accident on the highway and your vendors can't get to you? What if there's a snowstorm in the Midwest and you have all of your supplies coming from that area?
Okay.
So you really have to think about what would really impact your business should a disaster happen.
Okay, so what are some ways that businesses can prepare the company to recover, and then how they can prepare their employees?
So the first thing that's important for a business to do is really do a hazard assessment.
Okay.
So you're going to want to go through all of your business systems and go, what can we minimize our loss on?
Okay.
For instance, if your phone systems go down, have an emergency communication plan. Maybe your phone systems are forwarded, and those sort of things. If it's more of a catastrophic event, like an earthquake, for instance, there's things that we can do in the office, like bolting our shelving units to the wall, making sure there's the heavy items on those shelving units are somehow secured. And we want to make sure that we also prepare our employees. Like, would they know what to do in an earthquake? Or are they going to panic and run outside, which is not what we want them to do? Right. Outside of that, we want to make sure that our employees are also prepared for a disaster event, because if they're prepared, they're more likely to be able to come back to work more quickly than they would if they did not have a disaster plan.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple of things. You talked about doing an assessment, and then you talked about preparing the employees. What is the process for doing an assessment, or does the Red Cross offer something for companies for that?
There's several different resources that businesses can reach out to. One, for the local chapter and doing any preparedness presentations, our local chapter can come out to a business and give presentations to the employees in the company. So there's that resource. And then there's FEMA.gov, which has how to prepare your business, as well as the SBA.gov.
Okay.
And then we have a program called Ready Rating, and it's readyrating.org, and you can go there. It's in a free program where you can do the hazard assessment, but then it provides you resources and tools into building an actual disaster plan for your business.
Great. So in terms of the preparedness for the employees, I would imagine that employees will feel torn if there is a disaster that hits and, that it strikes citywide or countywide. There's going to be an obligation to the business, but there's going to be that emotional tie and the bind and the commitment to the family. How do companies balance that?
By having a plan.
Okay.
And I think most of the employees feel better if they know that a plan exists and what their role is in that plan.
Okay.
Maybe their role is to call the other people at their company, or maybe it's to reach out to a certain amount of clients. And so instead of not knowing what the plan is for the business, which is a whole lot more stressful than actually knowing what your role is, and then being able to have the plan to allocate that to somebody else if need be.
Okay.
So that's all a part of building a plan, preparedness plan.
Okay. Now, we have a lot of small businesses in the community, sometimes 2 or 3, employees, including the owner. Is this something that those small companies can and should do as well?
It's most important for them.
Okay.
In large disasters, most of these small businesses are the ones that are hurt the most.
Okay.
And so, for instance, I'll take one that used to come up quite a bit was if there was a rainstorm and there was lightning. For instance, the small business will make sure that they've backed up all of their files before they shut down those computers, and maybe they're unplugging those computers. And they're just mitigating from losing information that they would normally have. And so it's not always large things or just big companies that need to prepare, but it's those smaller companies as well.
Okay. Now, I can imagine some of those small companies might be saying, gosh, I don't have the tools, I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, it's going to be really expensive. Is it?
Most of the things don't cost a lot of money. If you're a larger company backing up your information on a
Right.
server and then a server outside of the impacted area, sure, that's going to cost a lot of money.
And
But if
chances
you're-
are they're doing it already.
Sure, but if you're backing up
Right.
your system for a small business, you can buy a drive for $99 at the store, and you can back up your information every day, or maybe it's twice a day, whatever that may be. So that's very inexpensive.
Okay.
Versus losing your business because a disaster happened, you weren't prepared.
Absolutely. Now, do you recommend that they keep those backups off-site? Or, right now there's a lot of, cloud options that are available, because if you're backing it up, but your drive is there in the location and it's damaged, then you're kind of
Right.
out of luck.
Sure. And it really depends on the business and really what the risks are for your area.
Okay.
Of course, it's always best to have information other than at the business. But if that's not an option, doing an external hard drive, most of us have thumb drives that we download
Right.
information to. You can take that home with you. That's also at a separate location.
Okay, good point. Let's talk a little bit more about the ready rating. If a company is looking to go on and to do that, how long does it take? What are some of the types of questions that it asks? What should they be prepared for? Yeah.
Well, one, doing a disaster plan is an ongoing thing. So
Okay.
it's going to be something that you build over time. It will ask you what your emergency communication plan is. It will ask you what your hazards are for your business. How many employees you have, what your vendors, where they're located. It's going to ask you a lot of different questions, but none that you can't answer. I mean, it's your business. You know
Right.
how you do the business.
But it's probably a lot of things that you hadn't thought of, so it really forces you to think critically about preparing for.
Correct. And then it provides you some resources and tools to help you build that plan, like you mentioned, the small businesses who can't afford maybe some of those. It provides you alternatives to maybe implement into your plan to prepare for those disasters.
How long of a period of time, you said that it's an ongoing process.
It is an ongoing process.
How long would it take someone to get in and to maybe complete it and come up with at least the beginnings or a preliminary plan?
It really depends on the person and how much time you're going to allocate to doing the plan. But within 30 days and quite quickly, it'll give you that assessment of where you are and where you should go in preparing for the disasters that would impact your business.
Okay.
So it doesn't take that long. But again, it depends on the business size.
Okay. And then are there brochures or resources that you all have, or is everything pretty much online that companies can go on and download?
Most of it is in the system, but you can also go to redcross.org, and we have a lot of information on like checklists, so to speak,
Okay.
of what you can how you compare for an earthquake,
Okay.
or those sort of things.
Okay. And it looks like there's, in terms of Ready Rating, the website is readyrating.org, as you had mentioned. And then for the Red Cross, resources can be found at redcross.org/prepare/location/workplace.
Correct.
So, okay. And anything else that businesses should keep in mind in terms of being prepared?
Well, like I said, and the most important thing, obviously, is your constituents, and nobody wants to fail. So it's always beneficial to allow a certain amount of time towards preparedness, especially, having a kit at your business as well. So you want to build a kit and keep it there at the business so that should you be stuck, that you have those supplies needed to sustain keep the people alive that are there and things like that. So, yeah.
What should go in that kit?
Water, snacks, so you can be able to, maybe there's flashlights. There might be extra computer supplies in there. Maybe if it's a go kit, you want to have that sort of thing in there. It might have thumb drives so people can back up their information.
Okay.
It really depends on the business. Maybe you have your secure documents. The other thing that you might want to do is also check with your insurance company about a business continuity plan because that's important as well.
Okay. Great suggestions. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. You're watching Strictly Business. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll be at the closing bell. Stay with us.